Good morning. Welcome to today's talk at 10. Again, in our studio with a wonderful view out over Wembley, right in the heart of West London. These are extraordinary times that we live through, and I think it's important that the whole team here at West London Business, and of course I'm sure our panel, share our heartfelt thanks once again for the hard graft of NHS and care workers and volunteers at this time. You all remain front of mind. Today's programme is going to explore a rather different topic to our first webcasts. We're going to be exploring with you, with the panel, the transition that's going on in so many businesses as we have explored over the past few weeks what home working means and what it is to lead and coach virtual distributed teams through the times of this pandemic. Our own team here at West London Business has of course gone through that same shift. It was about 4 weeks ago that we decided the sensible thing to do was probably to start working from home, and we had to navigate all the associated IT challenges and other changes in working. So having explored some fairly tough topics over the past few weeks, from financials through to the HR implications of business change, today I hope a slightly lighter tone to the panel discussions. Now, I think on the screen we're going to bring up our usual reminder of the online support resource that the team at West London Business have been developing over the past few weeks. It's actually gone through a bit of an upgrade since our last webcast and can be found at coronavirus.westlondon.com now. It's a resource that we're updating every day. There's more sort of upgrades that will happen to the microsite, and as always, if you think there are resources that we should be sharing, please get in touch with me, Pim, or another member of the team. So now let's get down to business. My expert panel today, I have Geoff Langston, a long-standing friend, supporter, and indeed member of West London Business, co-founder of GL Connects. Alongside Geoff, we've got Joyce Macfarlane, who's director of Selfsense. Joyce is also a director of West London Business, sits alongside me on the WLB board. We have Chris Paterson, director of SmileBeCurious, another West London Business member, and joining us for the first time today on a WLB panel, we have Laura Willis, who's co-founder of Shine Offline. So a very warm welcome to you all. I was reflecting when we were having a chat before the webcast went live, that goodness, in times that seem very, very distant now, probably about a year ago, several of the panel convened in a Tesla showroom in West London for a Park Royal Business Group sort of panel discussion around similar sorts of themes. But goodness, how the world has changed since then, and how different our lives and ways of working and navigating some of today's themes have now become. So the themes that we'll be focusing on over the next hour will be talking about the role of the manager when it comes to virtual distributed teams, how to promote resilience, creating a healthy relationship with digital devices. I'm constantly being cajoled, quite rightly, by my wife to try and get some time away from the laptop and the mobile phone, but it does seem so much harder now that I'm sort of living in one confined space all the time. And then finally, coaching strategies and how you sustain and build coaching within a virtual organisation. So those are our themes for the next hour. But just to kick us off, I'm going to turn to Chris Paterson to perhaps first of all just give us a flavour, Chris, of your work before we entered this parallel universe and how it's changing, but then to talk us through some of your headline reflections on the role of the manager and how this might be an opportunity to build trust. So welcome, Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew, and hello everyone. My name's Chris Paterson, and my purpose in life is to grow resilient leaders and teams. and I really want to make a difference in West London. My work involves working with individuals, with teams, leaders in organizations, and helping them to become the best version of themselves and to be more resilient. I think in these unprecedented times, the role of a manager becomes even more critical than it ever has been before. And it's also an opportunity. There's an expression, never waste a good crisis. And I think we've got a chance here as leaders and managers to really show that we care, make sure that we look after ourselves as well as others, and make sure that we all emerge from this actually stronger and fitter than when it started.
Thank you. And I know you've got some specific kind of thoughts around the role of the manager. Do you want? I think we're going to bring a slide up on screen. Do you just want to sort of talk us through some of those key thoughts that I'm sure our viewers will want to come back to in their own working lives? I think we've got it up on screen now, Chris.
So in terms of the manager, my belief is that the relationship that someone has with their manager is the most important relationship they have within a working environment. And I guess there's three things that I'd invite managers to really try and emphasize, and I'm sure you're already doing lots of these things already. The first thing is to be kind, the second is to be clear, and the third is to be connected. So in terms of being kind, this is about just recognizing that we are in a very, very different environment. We've all experienced change as a result of this. That's the stuff that you can measure. That's the place that you're working from is different. And then there's the human transition that accompanies change. And that takes place much more slowly and much more subtly. And so there's an opportunity to meet people where they are and really listen to them much more. There's an opportunity to be as accommodating as you can. And I think we're all starting to realize that working from home is actually incredibly efficient because there are fewer distractions and there isn't a commute. And it's also challenging at a time when we've got childcare to think about and just, how to go and get food and manage those things as well. And so the invitation is to be as accommodating as you can to the people who work for you. In terms of being clear, I think there's an opportunity to just reframe what is important and what's less important now. The more that you can give that clarity to your team members, then the more effective they can be at what they're going to focus on, and really challenge yourself. What is it we can drop right now that just matters less than it used to in this current context? Let's cut people some slack. In terms of what we control and what we can't control, I'll come on to that in a minute in another slide. But that's critical for where we focus our energies. And then in terms of being connected, we need to increase our communication. Even if we haven't got anything to say to our teams, the most important part of communication is actually our ability to listen. And so the invitation is to have regular check-ins with your teams, at a set time each day, ideally. Call a brief team meeting so that everyone can just hear from each other and just be able to say what's going on. As a manager, make yourself available. Let them know what time they can contact you as well. And I think one of the most important questions is to ask people how they are. And of course, in our culture these days, we've come to this "I'm fine" as a standard response, and we often leave it at that. I think there's an opportunity to really lean in here as a manager and say, okay, I hear that you're saying you're fine. And if you weren't fine, how would you let me know? And to have that conversation now, so that actually when things aren't going as well as someone would like them to be, that they know it's safe to come and talk to you, and that you can offer a listening ear and support them through that.
Yeah, really powerful points there, Chris. And you've got quite a striking quote around the sort of opportunity there is now to build trust.
Yes. So I think this applies to us with our teams, but it also applies with customers as well. I think here's a quote: "Is the small acts that are making a big difference." And I think this is an opportunity to really show our teams that we're there for them and that we care for them, and also our customers as well. This is where the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law is what's important. And so as a manager, if we can really show people in these times that we care, then we build loyalty that will last a long time. And
so
if we just move on
I was going to say, with that in mind, you have another key message for everyone to reflect on around focusing on what you can control.
Yes, so this is something that was developed by Stephen Covey, and it's about helping us as individuals, but also us as teams. So what you can see here are three concentric circles: the circle of control, the circle of influence, and the circle of concern. And all of these are things that can impact us. The circle of concern, of course, includes things like COVID-19. It also includes Brexit, includes the weather, whether there's a traffic jam or not. That's, I guess, less of a concern at the moment. But it's things that impact us that we have absolutely zero control over. And right in the middle there, we've got our circle of control, which actually just boils down to: what is it we say, what do we do, how are we thinking, and how are we feeling? And focusing on what we can do something about gives us a sense of power. It can help us also mitigate some of the anxiety, some of the worry, some of the uncertainty that's very natural for everybody to be feeling right now. And this is something that you can use with your teams, that just says, okay, we've got a problem. Let's analyze that problem from this lens, and let's make sure we are focusing on what we can control and what is it we need to accept or let go of, so that we can manage our precious commodity of energy as well as we can in these challenging times.
Thank you, Chris. A very useful framework for us all to look back to. Now I'm going to bring in Laura Willis, and I wonder whether you can just start by giving us a flavour, Laura, of your ethos at Shine Offline and your focus of day to day, and maybe also how it's changed over the past few weeks for you.
Indeed. Hi, Andrew. Shine Offline, we're digital wellbeing experts, so we're all about supporting businesses to try and help their staff to have healthy, sustainable relationships with the digital technology that's central to our world. So it's about our work technology and our personal technology, and the role that they both play in our working time and our personal time, making sure that we're using our technology with true purpose and intention, and we feel in control of it, and it's enhancing our work experience and our personal lives as well. The business was launched, ironically, on the back of a period of poor mental health that I experienced as somebody who was working from home. I became very overloaded and overwhelmed when my daughter was born as a self-employed consultant, and I basically entered a period of very poor mental health and realized that it was the role the digital was playing in my world that was causing pretty much all my stress and overwhelm. So the changes that I made and the conversations I had with people inspired us to launch the business, and that was just over 4 years ago. Digital well-being is the relationship you have with your technology, and we all have relationships with our devices, and everybody has some level of digital health, some more than others. And what we've found over the past few weeks is that the situation is magnified people's situations, in that some people may be not really that drawn to the news or social media and didn't really feel overwhelmed by those things, are starting to be. People having to work from home, the boundaries around digital and making effective work-life balance, that's become a struggle for a lot of people. So there's an awful lot that people can do, and we've basically had to rewrite everything that we offer because the world has changed.
It's an absolutely extraordinary adjustment, Laura. And on a very practical note, I've seen the number of emails that I receive probably increased fourfold over the past few weeks. I mean, it's just constantly ping, 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 ping. Now I know you've got some tips that you wanted to share around the practicalities of how we might minimise the kind of overwhelm from all this and ultimately protect our well-being. I think we might bring them up on screen now. Let's talk us through, Laura.
Okay, so this is for the individual, and this is for anybody at manager level or more junior. A lot of us are feeling overwhelmed, and we need to protect our well-being. So we would be big advocates of minimising news sources. A lot of people are feeling overloaded with news information coming through, and also using social media to get information as well. So we would say minimise the sources, pick a couple of trusted ones, and schedule when you check them. A lot of people get news updates on their phone and have social media notifications coming through on their phone. We would say turn those off and choose when you're going to go in. We think when it comes to work-life balance, having a ritual around turning on and turning off in the day is really important. And also having digital breaks throughout the day, making sure that when you are trying to have a bit of a rest during the working time at home, that you don't spend those going through social media or news, that you have an actual digital break. I'm a big advocate of not having email on your phone. And I would say now, because we're all stuck at home and we've got our laptops there and we're using email on the laptop, now is as good a time as any to take the email off your phone, because you don't need to carry your email to the kettle when you go to make a drink. So that would be one piece of advice, to try and get some balance in around email. And getting an alarm clock is a game changer, because 80% of people use their phone as their alarm, which means that a lot of people are A, looking at it before they go to sleep, B, checking it in the middle of the night, and C, on it first thing in the morning. So if you get your phone out of your bedroom, it takes away the temptation of doing that, which has become a habit for a lot of people, get you back in control, and that's going to have a really positive impact on how you sleep, how you start your day, etc. And it's a very simple thing to do.
I feel like you're reflecting my life back at me here, Laura. So I'm busy taking notes as we go. I have to say, very struck by the idea of removing email from my phone, because frankly, when I've got my laptop in one corner of the room with email, I don't really need a second digital device, do I? A few feet away, that's going ping 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 as well. It is extraordinary that sort of digital noise. I have to say, the one thing that I give myself a point for is that I do minimise my news sources. I try and just once a day watch a news programme, and I feel that's quite enough. Now, I think you had thoughts too, which were equally striking, around how we can sort of train our brain to focus and also maximise relationships. I think we're going to bring that slide up on screen for you to talk us through now, Laura.
Yeah, just to give a bit of context for this, research that we do has found that 93% of people report that digital distractions impair their ability to do their jobs. So, and the work that we've done, we've written a new webinar, which we've been actually rolling out for free, and we're doing one tomorrow lunchtime between 12 and 1. If anybody wants to join, they can email me. What we're finding on those webinars is that people are even more distracted than they have been by their digital. We live in a distracted world. We live in an attention economy. There's a lot of psychology behind our relationships to our digital devices. So what we need to do is try and train our brain and focus, because the world is designed to distract us. So this is where mindful meditation can be really powerful, because that's effectively brain training, a workout for your mind and exercising your attention, or trying to get into doing some mindful activities every day. So that could be reading, yoga, doing a jigsaw. All of these things will help you to focus your mind, which is exercising that part of your brain. Also, we're massive fans of unitasking at Shine Offline. So a lot of us spend our days in reactionary mode because we're inbox open. So we flit on and off technology, and we're not really in control of our own schedules. And now, more than ever, we have got to focus our minds, because a lot of us are challenged by children being in the house and trying to manage them as well as do our jobs. So we would say, set a timer, 25 minutes. Work out what you're going to do in the next 25 minutes and go. And try and get your head into a place of doing focused work. It means you'll actually get more done, because the temptation to jump on and off is there. But if we can start to practice this, then we'll be able to do it and get our work done. And removing those digital distractions is key. So closing the inbox or going offline on your email, which, having asked probably about 8,000 people if they know how this works, they don't. Google work offline on email and it'll show you how to do it. So you can still look at your inbox, but no traffic's coming in and no traffic's going out. Put your phone on flight mode, get it off your desk. Your phone's presence on your desk has a negative impact on your cognitive capacity. So you can't concentrate the same way if you can see your phone. So get that out of the way. Really important. As Chris was saying, now is a time for us to take this crisis and start to change our behaviour, because we're being forced to. We can't control the situation, but we can try and control our own attention. And if we can try and get our digital well-being in check, then I think everybody will be in a much better place as a result.
It's funny. I've been reflecting with my wife that as we never leave the house, it feels a little bit like we're on a spaceship, sort of interstellar sort of travel. So the notion of putting my phone in flight mode fits perfectly with that mindset that we're on a journey, and can switch certain gadgets off. And thank you for flagging your webcast tomorrow. And I understand that's going to be drilling down sort of a bit more into the managing well-being in this unsettling time. Is that right, Laura?
Not really. It's actually going to be looking at, it's the three areas. It's your performance at work and doing your best in this situation through managing your digital well-being. It's looking at your work-life balance and your general mental health and the role digital well-being will play in that over the coming weeks and months. And also relationships, making sure that you're using digital to maximize relationships in your working and your personal life. And also understand the need to disconnect and get back to that real humanness, human connection, and talking more, etc. So we're covering off the three areas, but it'll be really practical.
I was almost right. I was almost right, Laura. But we'll make sure the link. We'll make sure we circulate the link off the back of the programme, and if anyone wants the link urgently, to contact Pim. But that's 12 noon till 1 p.m. Tomorrow. For your diaries. Now we're going to turn to a great friend of West London Business, Geoff Langston. Again, just to kind of share with us initially how you're finding your work is evolving, but then perhaps to sort of get onto your initial thoughts, Geoff, around sort of coaching methods and how they can translate to the new world that we find ourselves in. Geoff.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Andrew. It is a massive change for us and other people. The majority of our work has been going out to clients' workplaces or business centres, etc., and delivering face-to-face training. So a big change for us, as with many other people. I think one thing to point out about each of the members of the panel here is that there will be themes going through what we're all talking about, and some great tips from Chris and Laura so far, some of which I'll reiterate as we go forward. So at GL Connects, we work predominantly with small businesses, helping them to grow and develop through their people. So we deliver workshops. A while ago, we went out to our customers and asked them what was giving them the most benefit through working for us, because we have long-term relationships with our clients. And what came back loud and clear was the element of coaching that we do. So we've refocused our business to spend a lot of time coaching, which seems to be giving our clients the outputs that they're looking for.
Interesting. And on a practical level, I sort of typically think of coaching, Geoff, as happening face to face. How does it work if you're doing it via Skype, for example?
You're quite right, Andrew. A lot of coaching in the workplace is done on the go. It happens when either the manager, the coach, is walking around the business or having a chat with somebody, or a member of the team comes to have a chat with them. And so this, what's called curbside coaching, just happens naturally. Clearly, under the current circumstances where people are working remotely, that has changed. That opportunity just to pop in and have a mutual chat, which turns into a coaching conversation, has changed. So in terms of change of practice, the first suggestion we have is that you clearly schedule some dedicated time for coaching at a mutually suitable time, and plan in a little bit longer than you would if it was a face-to-face coaching conversation, so that people have got, the coach and the coachee have got time to think and reflect. So clearly schedule that in. When you do connect, whether it's via video chat or a phone call, just make sure that your team member feels valued, that they know that you care about them, that you realize they're making a valuable contribution to the business, because it is, or it can be for some people, very isolating, very lonely. So just a reminder that they are a valued member of the team, before you talk about anything else, can work wonders for somebody's motivation. I saw one of my colleagues on LinkedIn this morning who is a speaker, goes out and speaks to many people. He's a coach, he's a trainer, and he said, I had a bit of a wobble this morning and I wasn't quite sure what to do. So make sure that your team member feels valued, and then having set aside some dedicated time for coaching, before you've got that far, just set a topic, or if it's a casual coaching conversation, as Chris said, how are you today? And that might throw up some interesting points.
Yeah, no, a very powerful check-in question. That certainly stuck with me. That sort of default that we can so often reply, "I'm fine," but the need to kind of press someone a bit further as to whether they're really fine and how they'd express if they're not.
Yeah, and letting people know that it's okay not to be okay, because we all may have those wobbles.
Absolutely. And of course, employees and managers are also having to be very adaptable at the moment. Do you have thoughts on how business leaders should be kind of coping with change right now?
Well, change is a given for the foreseeable future. Well, change has always been there. In fact, it's one of the things that we're certain of, is that there is going to be change. Again, as has already been mentioned, the key thing in change is communication. Communication. So again, as Chris said, check in with people regularly, not overloading them. People don't want to be micromanaged, but just making sure that your team members are feeling good about things. And when you do check in, recognizing that there is change, make sure in the communication people understand why things are happening. People want to know the whys for the whats. So for instance, and people understand and accept a lot more if they understand why something is happening or why they're being asked to do something. So for example, it was an example Geeta came up with this morning, my business partner. She said, with the social distancing that we have, the 2 meter rule, once people started to understand why it was so important and how the virus is transmitted, it started to become much more acceptable for people. So whatever it may be in your business, in the coaching session, then explain the whys. And also the other thing to recognize is that people will go through a series of emotional changes, and that will change from day to day, hour to hour, and even minute to minute. So when you dial in, or when you have a video face chat, recognize that how they were feeling when you set up the call may be very different to where they are now. So this checking in with people and understanding where they are is so important.
Yeah, no, that's very, very striking, and certainly resonates with my experience of the past few weeks. One of the things that we've been doing at West London Business is around all of our kind of one-to-ones and sort of team sort of planning meetings. We also now have a team social on Microsoft Teams every Thursday, just to kind of create a bit more of a relaxed space where we can find out how each other are doing. Now I'd like to bring in Joyce in just a moment, but before that I should remind everyone that's sort of tuned into this morning's webcast that of course you can put your questions into the live chat window. It would be really good to see and hear some of the challenges that you're currently sort of facing, and so where you'd like us to probe the panel a bit further. So I'll be turning to Pim in a moment for any questions that have been trickling in on the live chat, or indeed by email into Pim's inbox. But Joyce, it'd be great to hear a bit about what you're sort of picking up from your clients at the moment, and of course a reminder of your work. Joyce.
Yes. Hello everybody. Hi Andrew. Certainly my work really started several years ago, in 1996, when I left the BBC, and there it was focused on observing that then the management team of News was looking into the 10 years ahead of the new television centre, and the focus was on the technology and on the building. And what I noticed is what time they were spending looking at what they need. So that's why I started the coaching. And then since leaving an organisation like that, I've worked with large companies like 3M as well as small charities. And what really I observed was the need for the leaders of the organisation to have time to work together as a team. So really what has happened over the years, it's been focusing more on team relationships, team development, and around the consultancy of organizational development. But really that being focused at what are the leaders of the organization doing to ensure their own development around team working. So most recently, I have actually reduced the number of time I spend actually working. So on that basis, the number of clients is much less. However, it's enabled me to work on projects with a key client who has really been a small business, and they've grown immensely in the 18 months from something like 17 people to 55 people, which is huge. The work has been focused on working with the chief executive, one-to-one sessions, but what she discovered was that it was good that many of her team members would require this. So expanded to one-to-one coaching sessions with each of her team members. And then the organization extended it to anyone in the organization who wanted coaching sessions. So bringing it forward, certainly with what they've been going through with the different way of working, has been developing more the virtual team working, so their use of technology, but also with me being able to coach them via Skype or all the other technologies that's possible. So certainly all the points that Chris mentioned, definitely agree that for leaders, or whether they're managers, it is about showing you care, which is focused on listening. It is about being clear, and it is certainly about being connected. And so therefore, listening is the greatest thing. Encouraging that managers having empathy is really important. But one of the things with coaching, with having empathy, the leader needs to be very clear about their own emotion. And having empathy requires them to be able to be clear about their own, as well as taking on and understanding what the people they're leading are going through.
Joyce, I'm going to just interrupt briefly with a sort of personal reflection over the past few weeks. I mean, around your point on listening, that it can be just as in real life, if you're having a conversation with someone and someone's texting away on their phone, it can be rather irritating that they're not completely tuned into the moment. That same principle does seem to translate into Microsoft Teams meetings and Skype calls, that if people aren't fully tuned in and actively listening, you can really feel it, can't you?
Well, definitely. That was one of the issues that came up with the client, was that a lot of the managers would text and be looking at their email because, of course, some of the projects were crucial and there were international clients calling in. However, with looking at the team dynamics and how they behaved, it was encouraging them to be able to raise some of these specific behaviours that others were feeling uncomfortable with, but yet hadn't said anything. So with working with them, it was about saying conflict management is part of dealing with the transition of change that leaders and their teams have to.
Yeah. The audio quality has been diminishing there, Joyce, which I think also highlights the challenges that we're all grappling with of working from home and working virtually. That we need the internet bandwidth to sustain itself for all of this to work in practice. But I'm going to bring my colleague Pim in now, just to see whether we've had a question come through for a specific member, or indeed all of the panel. Pim.
And I think it's for the panel in general, from Chris Ablett, Stage Engage. Do you think this will change the way companies work for the future? Will more companies adopt work from home as the norm, and has the future been brought forward to today?
Yeah, so really interesting question there from Chris Ablett at Stage Engage around whether the future has been brought forward. You know, are we now establishing new norms and behaviours, and how we're going to work for sort of time immemorial. I wonder whether I can bring Geoff back in for your thoughts initially, and then I'll turn to Laura. Geoff.
I actually don't think this is going to be the future. These are extraordinary circumstances. What it is doing is giving people insights into some of the benefits of flexible working. We've been talking about flexible working, or many industries have been talking about flexible working for a long time, and trusting people to work from home. So it's a great experiment to give it a go, and all the tools and the approaches that we talked about today will be really useful. What has been shown through research is that whilst remote working, flexible working is great, as human beings we crave social face-to-face contact. So it is a valuable tool. It can lead to really good performance. However, it is unlikely to replace the social aspect, the getting together around a table, the face-to-face contact that human beings crave. And when you think about it, if we're talking about phone conversations, so phone communication, if you haven't got the benefit of video communication, our biggest opportunity to communicate with another human being face-to-face is our body language, and that's missing completely. It's great that video is so easily come by these days, but for some organisations and individuals, still that tech isn't there. So I don't think this is the future. I think
I've certainly been struck, Geoff, by how in the first week of this sort of social isolation and distancing, the conversation started about post-coronavirus parties. And if that's after week one, goodness knows what it will be like in 12 weeks' time. Our diaries will be packed with parties as we're suddenly sort of released into the wide world. But Laura, I wonder what your thoughts are on whether there's a kind of more sort of profound long-term change that this is triggering. Laura.
Well, we've worked with about 100 businesses, from global down to more local, and I would say the vast majority of them have a flexible working policy. Some, like PwC, have a thing called everyday flexibility, where they basically encourage everyone to manage their own schedules and work wherever they want, down to others like the Crown Estate, who have it on there. If people want to use it, they can. I think we're going through a massive period of change, and I think it's good because it's the way the world of work is moving. But I think it is challenging to a point where if we just consider personal circumstances, like whenever you go into the office to work, we're all on a level playing field. But whenever we're all working from home, specifically in this current climate, we're dealing with different things. Some of us are alone, and some of us need work for socializing. Some of us have young children like me and are trying to juggle too many plates. So I think we're going through a process of adjustment. We're having to work in a different way. We're having to think about each other in a different way, because my business colleague may have 4 young kids and I'm actually living on my own. So my situation is very different to theirs. And I think it's going to bring a lot of benefit to relationships at work, etc. Whether or not it will result in this being the norm, I'm not sure. It's becoming the norm anyway. As I said, the vast majority of our clients have a flexible working policy anyway. But I'm hoping that the process we're all going through now, which is going to be hard, will result in us actually being better colleagues on the other side, with more empathy, etc.
Yeah, no, that's very, very striking. I mean, I'm also struck that's on a very practical level. It is sort of, I suppose, forcing those that haven't necessarily built up the technological confidence and competence over the years. It's now become essential, and goodness, I'm finding myself getting more and more familiar with moving between 10 different sort of communication tools in one day, just to keep things moving along. So that's become impossible, it would seem, to escape. I'd like to bring Chris back in now. So I know you've got one or two more quite striking slides to share with us, particularly sort of, I think, focusing in initially on resilience, which I think it'd be good to explore with the wider panel too. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Andrew. So resilience is a word that's bandied around a lot, and I think one of the important things is to be able to speak about it and encourage others to speak about it as well. For me, the idea of resilience, there's a term, bounce back ability. It's the ability to recover from setbacks. I actually prefer bounce back ability plus. We emerge fitter, stronger, and wiser as a result of a challenging situation or a setback. And so, again, this presents an opportunity for us, this current crisis. One of the things we talked about why earlier. What Geoff mentioned, why are we doing something? I think a great question for everyone to ask themselves is, why do I need to be resilient? For whom do I need to be resilient? Because it's not just about us, it's about others. Now, as a leader, fit your own oxygen mask first. This is about making sure that you're putting the things in place to help you become as resilient as you can, so that you can then support your teams as well. We live in a world of daily disruption now. Who knows what further changes are going to happen, and we've got absolutely no control over that. But as Laura mentioned, daily discipline is a way of countering that daily disruption. Choose what you can control. Choose what time you wake up, what time you go to bed. Create the rituals and the routines that work for you, and know yourself. There's no this is about finding things that work for you. One of the great ways of working out how your resilience is getting on is to monitor your energy levels. Ask yourself, how much energy have you got right now? Give yourself a score out of 10. If it's less than a 5, get curious. I wonder why that is. Think about what's happened in the last 24 hours and what you could do differently to increase your energy levels. Some of the basics are sleep, movement, hydration, and nutrition. In particular, hydration, actually. I've heard water described as nature's antidepressant. Our brains are mainly made of water, and when we are as little as 2% dehydrated, hormones get released that take us into a little bit of flight or fight mode. And we know that then impacts our ability to think clearly, And in the current challenges, do we really want that additional challenge? The best way to know whether you are hydrated or not is a very simple test. It's called the P test, and it's based on the color of your pee. And if that is dark, then you need to be drinking more water. It needs to be as close to pale as you can. There's also something about being kind to ourselves in these really, really challenging times. Cut ourselves some slack. We just can't expect ourselves to continue as we always did. This is different. So actually, rather than noticing what's not going well, ask ourselves what is going well. Gratitude Road is something that was introduced to me by a colleague who used to cycle to work every day and used a particular road as her prompt to do gratitude exercises. Let me just ask you all now just to pause for a second and just think of something or someone that makes you feel genuinely grateful. Now just notice how you're feeling. Notice any bodily sensations. Notice whether the edges of your mouth may have curled up a little bit. Most people, when I ask them to do this, generally describe something that's positive. How long did that take? 5 or 10 seconds. This is available to us wherever we go. And so there's an invitation to build something into your routine. We're not commuting at the moment, so Gratitude Road may not be possible. But actually, what are you doing when you brush your teeth in the morning or the evening? What do you do when you're boiling a kettle? These are opportunities to just pause and just reflect on what are the things that I'm grateful for. This is another way, as to build on what Laura said, is how we can retrain our brains. And then the next point is the idea of strategic recovery, and this is about taking mindful breaks during a working day. Some of the things that we might have done before may not be available to us, but just make sure that you're not sitting for long periods of time. You're not on back-to-back conversations. Even if you just stand up and have a stretch, make yourself a cup of tea, look at a picture of a loved one, listen to a piece of music. Even in a minute, you can do something that can just reboot your energy levels. Positive reframing is a really powerful tool in these times. It's very easy for us to focus on what we've lost. There's a huge sense of loss going on at the moment. We've lost all sorts of things from potentially loved ones, financial loss, but just loss of social connection, loss of our routines. And yet from this, there will be some positives that come. And what I've learned over the years is that what we look for is what we find. So the invitation is to look for the positives. And sometimes actually the most challenging situations for us can yield positives that we would never have imagined. Just over 6 years ago, when I was working at GSK, I found myself getting incredibly stressed. I found myself unable to sleep properly. I ended up taking a month off work with stress. At the time, it was incredibly challenging. I'd lost my sense of purpose, and I had so many questions and so few answers. And yet that time has been the birth of me rediscovering my purpose, carving out a niche for myself and a life where I get enjoyment, I get satisfaction on a daily basis that I never had before. And it wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't gone through that experience. So I can genuinely look back on that and say, I'm really glad it happened, even though it wasn't great at the time. I think the final thing for me just to touch on is actually just to ask ourselves, what are we learning? And if we move on to the next slide, just to finish off, here's a picture with a quotation: "A smooth sea never made a skillful sailor." We only grow as individuals by being pushed out of our comfort zone. Now, at the moment, I appreciate that many of us are being pushed way further out of our comfort zone than we would really like to be. But one of the things that we can do for ourselves and with our teams is just to periodically ask ourselves, what am I learning through this? Maybe I'm learning how to use different technology, and maybe that's going to offer me greater flexibility in the future. Maybe I'm learning what the real priorities are. Maybe I'm learning some things about myself in terms of the way that I respond to certain situations. And if we can hold a curiosity as we go through these challenging times, then this is what will build our resilience. This is how we will learn and get stronger and fitter, so that we all emerge in better shape than when we started.
Some fantastic ideas for us all to take away there, Chris. And I was reassured that several of the panelists were sipping away on their glasses of water whilst you were speaking. I've got through a whole mug of water in the past hour. So we're putting these principles into practice where we can. Now, Joyce, I'd like to come back to you as we sort of start to come towards the end of our hour. For some of your takeaways from this sort of rich seam of ideas and discussion this morning. Joyce?
Well, certainly some of my takeaways have been Chris's input. Really, as a coach, many of the points that he has covered align very much with what I do and have done, and I think we all should do. The important thing really is a coach, and that's not just us as a professional coach, but I believe I'm already developing the leaders, the managers as coaches themselves, so they can coach each other within the team, they can coach their wider team, and that's remembering to be a role model. And that role model covers the points that were said by Laura, that certainly Chris has said, and Geoff, related to reflect on yourself and what it is you're learning and what is it that you're doing to be kind to yourself, in order that you're demonstrating to other people that it is okay to have your emotional reactions to situations and being able to talk about them. And that's what I think the coaching session is about. One part of it is being able to touch base with yourself as to how you're feeling, also what thoughts you may be having that are arising in any conflict. But as a result of that and being listened to, you're able to be clearer about a way forward.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. And I'm going to bring my colleague Pim back in just to see whether we have a final question for our panel. Pim.
No more questions from the audience at this point. I do have a question for Laura, if we have time, which is when you talk about digital breaks during this time, what are your feelings on digital entertainment such as film, TV, Netflix to relax? As leaving the house for hobbies is often no longer possible, this will be a medium many people will turn to for relaxation and entertainment.
So Laura, did you catch that? Digital breaks,
Yeah.
and should we be turning to Netflix? And I think there's even a new Disney service to kind of provide some escapism.
Yes, 100%. This isn't about not using digital, it's about using it with real purpose. So I suppose what I would say is no double screening. If you're going to sit down and watch a bit of Netflix, put your phone on flight mode in the kitchen cupboard, because we need to immerse ourselves in the moment. There are other ways that we can use technology. Hands up who's done Joe Wicks's PE in the morning at 9 o'clock. Hands up who's done a virtual pub quiz. It was my husband's birthday yesterday and we had drinks on Zoom with a couple of friends who live literally a mile away. So use this technology. Oh my Lord, there's so much benefit to using it, but let's use it with true purpose and make sure that it's adding value to our experience, the experience that we're going through at the moment more than ever.
Yeah, no, very striking reflection there, and I have to say a new bit of jargon. No double screening. I've never come across the double screening notion before, but it makes absolute sense. And I suppose then just a sort of final question from me to the panel. I think we've been perhaps rather lucky, certainly thus far today, that we haven't had any doorbells ring and couriers arriving. We haven't yet had any sort of children sort of arriving on screen, stage right or stage left. But what's your advice on coping with that? And I'm going to bring in Chris first of all for your thoughts on how do we manage the chaos that's around us in our home offices.
I think that the chaos is partly there's some things we can control and there are some things that we can't control. And I think part of it is about being prepared. So a top tip I heard from someone was, if you're doing some sort of webinar, state up front what the practice is if the line drops off. What do you want people to do? If you're hosting something, do you want them to dial out and dial back in again, or just wait till you come back? Is there a phone number they can contact you on if the technology doesn't work? I think we can try and control the things that we can. So, if for pets and things like that, is there a place that they can be put when at a particular moment in time? But some of the other things are a bit random. I find myself now bathed in sunshine, which is lovely and warming, but it definitely has an impact on the quality of the picture, and I need to think about different locations.
We'll let you soak up the sun rays, Chris. You're forgiven. Geoff, any thoughts from you on the chaos of the home environment?
Yeah, just be prepared to accept the unexpected. It will happen at the most sometimes inopportune times. So just be prepared to say, okay, it's happening now, and deal with the situation. Don't let it get you down. These things happen to all sorts of people, as you'll have seen on many TV interviews over the years.
Yeah, and Laura, I'm almost disappointed. You promised us the possibility of children joining the show today, but you've clearly got it under control.
No, that's called a husband who doesn't have a lot of work, thanks to the situation at the moment.
Yeah.
I think my advice to everybody out there with children, I've got a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, is let's be realistic. There are a reason why children go to school and nursery, and when we're at work, we can't do it all the time. And we can't control what they do, but a little top tip for people is use the screen for good. What we're doing in our house is they're getting an hour and a half of CBeebies in the morning, and they're getting an hour and a half of CBeebies before dinner. And what that means is we have 3 hours every day where they are very happy to sit, and they're picking programs, and they're ones that are educational, which is ticking lots of boxes. And it means that we know we've got 3 hours of focused time every day. If I'm running a lot of webinars for clients at the moment. If my son runs in the middle of one of them, I don't know what I will do. But we've got to be realistic, and as Chris said, just talk about this stuff. If you're running a meeting or whatever, just say the reality is my kids are next door, so forgive me if they happen to come in or whatever.
These things will happen. I think everyone's very accepting of this new reality that we're faced with. Well, we are now at the end of our hour. The time has flown by as always. I must thank first of all our production team, Pim and Janelle at West London Business, who bring all of this together, but also Joel, our producer at Revolution Audio, that keeps all the studio running so smoothly for us. A huge thank you to my panel who've joined me this morning: Geoff at GL Connects, Laura at Shine Offline, Joyce of Selfsense, and Chris from SmileBeCurious. So much food for thought that you've packed in to such a short space of time. Tomorrow, our talk at 10 on Wednesday is a Park Royal special. We're going to be focusing on coronavirus, the West London food industry response. And just finally from me, I'm going to bring up one more slide on screen. A reminder, as always, that we really welcome your thoughts back to us on how we can best support you at West London Business. If you go to tinyurl.com/WL Thoughts, there are just a few questions that will take 2 minutes minutes to complete. So please do dip into that and help keep us on the right track. And as I said at the beginning of the hour, our new micro website for current advice and support, coronavirus.westlondon.com. So a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in today, and we look forward to listening to the thoughts of our panel tomorrow morning on Talk at 10. So tune back in then. Have a good day. Thank you.